Hello, class. My name is Stephen Douglas, and I'm a Democratic senator from the great state of Illinois. I'm going to tell you a story today about how a series of compromises about if and where slavery would be expanded in the United States ended with the start of the Civil War. You see, the problem started when the country began to expand west, and the North and South had different ideas about if slavery should expand with it. So, in order to avoid conflict, we had to come up with a compromise. A compromise is defined as an agreement or a settlement of a dispute that is reached by each side making concessions. In 1820, the first compromise was made in our country, called the Missouri Compromise. After the Louisiana Purchase from the French, there was a lot of land to the west. Missouri had applied to become a state in the Union and wanted to be a slave state. We already had an equal number of slave and free states. Something had to be done. The compromise was that we allowed Missouri to come in as a slave state and then to allow Maryland to come in as a free state, thus keeping the balance of power in the Senate equal. We also decided that there would be an imaginary line from the 36-degree 30-minute line running across the country that would prohibit any slave states from coming into the Union above that line. The definition of prohibit is to formally forbid something by law, rule, or other authority. After the Mexican-American War, California applied to be a free state, and the Southerners tried to cut it in half at the 3630 line. This caused some conflict. Also, the New Mexico Territory and Arizona territories wanted to join the Union, and they were both south of the line, potentially setting up the Senate to be unequal. This was a big issue for the North, so I helped come up with another compromise. This was called the Compromise of 1850. It allowed for California to come in as a free state without being cut in half. And New Mexico and Arizona, well, they'd be able to decide on their own if they wanted to be slave or free. This was called popular sovereignty. The definition of popular sovereignty in this context means that the people would vote and decide whether they wanted to be slave or a free state. Popular meaning liked and admired or enjoyed by many people, and sovereignty meaning supreme power or authority. As time went on, more territories applied for statehood. Once again, the nation was thrust into conflict when the Nebraska Territory, which was very large, wanted to join the Union. As it was so big, there was a push to divide it into two territories. They ended up being Kansas and Nebraska. Both of these territories were above the 3630 line and by law would have had to be free state. The southern states did not like this at all. They wanted at least one of these states to be slave. A new compromise was to be made, and I was very instrumental in making it happen. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. This was a compromise that repealed the Missouri Compromise and allowed for new territories to decide on their own if they would be free or slave. Remember, this was called popular sovereignty. The definition of repeal is a legislative tool used to get rid of a law that was previously passed. With both sides fighting over whether or not to expand slavery, the nation began to look at the 1860 elections. I was nominated for the Northern Democrats. I did not want to see an end to slavery, but I also did not think the federal government should impose a law to bring slavery to the rest of the nation. The Southern Democrats picked a candidate that wanted a federal law to force slavery on the rest of the expanding nation. The Republicans up north picked a fellow from Illinois, where I'm from. His name was Abraham Lincoln. He did not believe slavery should continue to expand anywhere. But because the Northern Democrats and the Southern Democrats had different candidates to represent them, the vote was split, and Lincoln won the election. After Abraham Lincoln won, South Carolina immediately voted to secede from the Union. The definition of secede is to withdraw formally from membership in a federal union, an alliance, or a political or religious organization. When South Carolina voted to secede, no other compromises could be made. The secession of North Carolina led to other states seceding and forming their own country, which began the start of the Civil War, America's deadliest war ever fought.